Thank you, Indira, and thanks everybody for joining me today. And what we're going to talk today about is really building that collaborative and teaming up with leadership. And from the leadership approach, as well as from the facilities maintenance team, and how you can collaborate together. And what we're really going to talk about is why making that case for facilities is such a big deal. Well, facilities impact safety, comfort, compliance, and operational efficiency of those buildings. They wear so many different hats, and they're constantly on top of what's going on in your buildings. And I think where that really comes into play is in most cases, leadership doesn't understand all of the things that facilities and maintenance teams touch. And that's on a regular basis. But also 70% of equipment failures could be prevented by proactive maintenance approaches. And that's a source is Jones Lang LaSalle. So JLL did a survey of all of their clients and also other industry leaders and came up with this stat from peers in the industry. Well, it's exposing leadership to these types of stats. It's going to help you partner with them and also help them better understand what you do on a daily basis and what your team does on a daily basis. But it really comes down to that lack of visibility, that leadership, they don't see all of this stuff. So it can also lead to some underfunding and also some of those potential operational risks. And we'll jump into showing you what some of that can look like within organizations. And most of what I'm going to share is some of those best practices that I've heard from folks and peers in the industry. So let's jump in even further. So it all really starts with getting facilities a seat at the table. In many cases, there's buckets. There's these different groups within organization. You've got your top organization hierarchy, and then it trickles down to different departments. But facilities should have a seat at that table and be seen as a strategic partner, not just a cost center. Okay, because you're charged with maintaining the building. You're charged with updating the building, and facilities needs to have a seat at that table so that leadership understands what's going on. And leadership should want that. They want to have that finger on the pulse, just like the facilities teams does. So it'll help them to better understand what's going on with their buildings. But also it helps to build a relationship with other departments, those other key stakeholders within your organization. That's finance, that's operations, also HR. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how each one of those plays a key role in facilities here in just a little bit, but also how this translates facilities needs into a business impact. All right. And that's a big one. Business impact. If you're not able to maintain the facilities and keep those up and running and also expose your leadership to what's going on in the building, it can potentially set you up for some failures. But the impact of facilities visibility is companies that prioritize facilities as a strategic asset report 15% higher productivity. You're getting more out of your team. There's pride in your work. And most facilities teams, I see this, and I've met with hundreds of them around the country. And happy teams get more out of their teams, right? And also leadership should be exposed to that as well. But also proper facilities integration reduces emergency maintenance by 30%. So it can help minimize, if you got your finger on the pulse of what's going on in your facilities, whether that's mechanicals, whether that is maintenance on the infrastructure itself, you know what's going on with your building. And the more you're on top of that, you can minimize some of those potential risks for emergency maintenance. Okay. Also, increased visibility leads to faster funding approvals and lower overall risk, okay? Faster funding approvals means lack of surprises, okay? Meaning you're not walking into your leadership and things fail, don't get me wrong, but you're not always walking in there with a 911. With an emergency, you're walking in there saying, listen, remember we talked about this months and months ago, and I brought this up again. Well, now we're at a critical point. but you're lowering that overall risk because they're starting to allocate resources for that. It's not always a surprise. Now we've got to scramble. But the full circle of facilities management, again, I always say we wear so many different hats in facilities. It's touching all departments, touching all things. And it makes my heart warm when I'm walking and doing site walks with people, with facilities teams, and they know everybody. They're walking down the hallway. They know the custodian. They know the charge nurse in a hospital. They know the reception. They know leadership. They walk through the facilities and they know everybody because they're in those spaces all the time. It's about relationships, but it's building that trust not only with those people in the field, it's building that trust with leadership and building that cohesive language that you both can understand. And it's different for each leader within an organization. Some of them digest information differently than others, but some of it, it's very cut and dry. Here's a number, here's a this, but relating that to real life things will help them to better understand what you do and what your organization's goals are and some of the challenges you face. Okay, but communicate early and often. Cannot stress that enough. Communicate, talk to them, schedule regular meetings and hold that cadence. Do it it doesn't matter if you've got a thousand things going on, hold that spot and hold leadership and have leadership pull in and make sure that they've got the right resources for that meeting as well. But communicate that early, often. Right. But be transparent with metrics and progress. If you've got some initiatives you're working on, share that. Okay. Back it up with numbers, back it up with real life stories. Okay. And what's going to happen is you're going to start to see that when leadership you go into the next meeting, they're going to start to notice some of those things when they're doing their own walks, when they're walking through a building and they remember, listen, we have a challenge going on with this part of the building, or we've had an incident that happened in this part of the building. They're going to start to notice that stuff too. And then when you go into these meetings, they're going to recognize, you know what? I noticed you guys fixed that stuff. And I noticed that thing is working. How's that going? They're going to start to ask those kinds of questions, which is huge because it means they're vested, they're involved. But also share monthly KPIs on downtime hours, cost avoidance things that you've done, also any safety incidents that have happened. All right. This is going to, again, help them to really have an idea of what's going on. And leadership wants that because, again, some of them digest things differently, but as a leader, they're going to want to have exposure to what's going on. And not everything all at once, not drinking out of a fire hose. That's not what I'm talking about here. Feed them the way that they can digest it and share that information in a way that they can understand that information, because it's going to help you and the team in the long run. But building that trust and transparency with leadership really is going to help you, especially when it comes to organizations with strong facilities leadership trust. They report 24% fewer safety incidences. Okay, that's a big one. That's from IFMA. But also be transparent with your reporting helps you increase leadership buy-in 3 times. Think about that. You go into leadership and you shared all of this information with them on what you're looking to do, long-term goals. You may tweak it based off of what they say, but again, they're vested so they understand what that's going on. But more importantly, by being transparent and reporting this stuff, you're going to get more yeses. You're going to get more acceptance, they're going to go to bat for you. They're going to go to bat for you, not just to say yes, but also help you find funding for that. Or maybe they'll get creative with other ways to be able to fund some of these things. But again, it's about getting more trust with leadership so that you've got a mutual goal to get to your end resolution, whatever that is for that thing. But also trust enhances that long-term funding commitment. All right. You're going to be, I've met with so many different facilities folks, and I've even met with senior leadership at the C-suite. All right. And one of the biggest things that I kept hearing, and it was a repeat, rinse and repeat over and over again, was I have a really good relationship with my leadership. And what that meant to them, and I've heard this over and over, different variations of the same thing is because I have this relationship, there are less surprises, but more importantly, when I really need something, I rarely get a no. I get yes. And it's because of that trust, because of that relationship. More leaders I've talked to that said, I don't need to know everything and I don't need to be an expert on everything. That's why I hire people that know those specific things. But I know a little about a lot. Okay. That's a way to digest information is I know a little about a lot, but I rely on my people and it's building that trust and having that trust in my people as a leader. That's going to help them to better understand what you're going on. And again, get to that yes. So also, one thing that I've heard and I've seen, and this is, I think this is genius, okay, is heat maps, especially when it comes to budget submissions, right? When you're in budget cycle and you're talking to leadership, again, they don't know everything about facilities. They don't know everything about HVAC and the full infrastructure of your buildings in most cases, all right? But creating ways that they can visually understand it, not just get a spreadsheet handed across the table that says we need X amount of dollars for X or for Y. Okay. It's not about just sliding a spreadsheet across the table without justification. Heat maps are a way that you can do that. Heat maps show risk plus cost, cost impact, and also plus downtime. If we don't do this, this is what this means. But it also helps you to really put a tangible thing associated, even on a visual thing. I'll show you what that looks like in a second. It's a visual way to say, if we don't do this, here's the impacts and what it does visually impacts our sites. Okay. But also include predictive failure zones in budget packs, meaning things are starting to go sideways, things are happening on a regular basis. You can show that with a visual so that you're not, again, just sliding over a spreadsheet that has a bunch of numbers on it, budget numbers, and you're needing X amount of dollars. It's visually showing if we don't, here's that impact. And this is what that looks like. This is an example I got from actually one of my clients. So I thought this was genius. It's educating leadership on the impacts of failures. Okay. And in this case, it's an equipment failure. So what they did is on this screen in that little clouded box there, you see one little icon there. That is an AHU, okay, an air handling unit in a hospital, right? So in this hospital, that unit, they've clouded the area in which this unit impacts on this floor of this hospital. So let me define that and explain to you why he did it this way. And this is genius, okay? He said, this one single unit is impacting this areas. Well, that's the ORs 1, 2, 3, and 4, PACU, and also the ICU of a hospital, right? So he's not just saying we have to replace this unit. He's saying he's sliding across the table a number, whatever that dollar amount was, and I don't know the exact figure, but that dollar amount, say it's $250,000, right? So rather than just slide a $250,000 number across the table, he's showing visually that this unit is if it goes down, it will immediately mean we have no air in this area. And that is ORs 1 through 4. That is the PACU, ICU. Those are critical areas in this building. But he's backing it up by other things. He's saying we've had X number of work orders on this system and it's added up to this amount. He's saying we've had failures this many times. We've had this go down. We've had blah, 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 blah. But you understand, if this unit goes down, it immediately impacts this area. So let's role play that for a second. Picture a unit in your building. It's a rooftop unit. It's in a mechanical room, whatever. If that unit fails, how does that impact your facilities? You can visually show your leadership. So when you go in to that monthly meeting, that quarterly meeting with them, and you have that one-on-one with them that you need to schedule, okay, it's those monthly meetings, those quarterly meetings. So you're giving them a heads up what's going on. You're walking in with this. You're walking in at your annual budget meetings too. You're walking in with visuals showing if we don't do something about this, this is potentially the impact. You don't even have to know that, it's X amount of dollars an hour if this area goes down in these ORs, or the PACU impacts patients, the PAC ICU impacts patients. All of this in healthcare impacts patients. But if it goes down, that means you're also sending nurses home. You're sending doctors home. That also is the impact on the patients having to reschedule all their appointments, having to go get new blood work done, having to get new labs done for other things, right? It's a compounded challenge, but this is a visual to show them that's what that means. And they know how much an hour it means to your organization if that's down. I work with a lot of manufacturers, and they've got it down to the penny, how much they lose if that machine goes down. Same thing here. What's the impact on your facilities? What's the impact on your organization if something goes sideways? Well, downtime in hospitals, for instance, operating rooms downtime can cost $2,200 an hour. That's staff, supplies, that's lost revenue for a healthcare organizations. Okay. That's $474,000 an hour. That's canceled procedures, like I mentioned, lost revenue, rescheduling, all of that stuff. Okay. Also compliance risks, but also not finding the right shutoff or room into fast enough means you can also just a shutoff, meaning lost power. And I'll show you what that looks like. It can cost thousands of dollars per hour. And again, risk patient care and compliance. Well, what does that look like? Well, here's a real story, right? Third shift, middle of the night, it's 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. Power goes out in one of the ORs when they're setting up for the first surgeries of the day. Third shift guy he's been there for 4 days, right? 4 days on the job. Doesn't know where anything is. He knows where basic main stuff is, but he doesn't know where every electrical panel is. In an organization like a healthcare organization, there are thousands of panels in many cases. So knowing where each one is impossible for that guy to remember where it is. Well, this power goes out in an OR, right? In these outlets. All he did was when the charge nurse called him, he answers the phone, and all he asked him was, what's the panel number on the outlet? He opens up his phone, literally pulls his phone out of his pocket, types in the panel number, and it shows him where that one panel is, in what room it is, on what floor, and he walks right to it. Power is back on in 5 minutes. Okay. That is how powerful it is, and what the impact of being able to respond fast, being able to find information. These are the stories that leadership needs to understand, right? If you can't do this, these are those things that you talk to leadership about, and they'll understand, listen, if this is a real world scenario here, if something goes sideways, just like I showed on the previous slide where you've got heat maps, okay? And again, it's knowing where stuff is so that your team can respond. This guy has been on the job for 4 days, right? 4 days. Half of the battle when you get new hires that come into your building is they don't know your building. So they're shadowing somebody for months and months and months, trying to find everything, trying to know what's going on in a building. But more importantly, where is the stuff? Where's the shutoff? Where's a piece of equipment? What areas are served by this equipment? What areas are served by this panel? This is a great example of that. Day one, your new hires walk in and they have the ability to find everything themselves in seconds. That's the power of understanding your buildings. But sharing this type of stuff, these types of stories with leadership also helps them understand. And they want to know this stuff because, again, this is a positive situation here because he was able to respond. But you turn this positive into, because we were able to do this, again, it builds that trust within your organization, trust with your leadership, so that they understand, listen, my guys are on it. My team knows what the heck they're doing, but also I do too. I know what's going on, and I'm going to arm my team with tools so that they understand and they can access stuff to do their job. Well, using these heat maps to tell that story, like I was talking about, visual Visuals lead to 70% better understanding in budget meetings. That's Harvard Business Review. But think about that. I'm a visual guy. Okay, I'd rather see, listen, it doesn't mean something to me if I get a spreadsheet and I see it's $250,000 for an AHU. Well, what's the impact? What area is that? What areas is that going to impact on my building? Oh, shoot, this is going to happen. This is going to impact ORs 1 through 4 and my PACU. Yeah, we're going to do that right now. It's visual. But also, heat maps based proposals are 40% more likely to get funded. And again, it's that impact statement, so to speak. It's here's what it means. But also, real-time risk visuals improve response planning and accuracy, meaning my team can respond. My team knows where this stuff is, but I've got my finger on the pulse of my entire building and my infrastructure. So I know what the heck is going on in my buildings, and so does my leadership. So strategic planning involvement with facilities, your design construction team, but also with your leadership right up front. You've got new projects coming up. You've got new big plans that they're working on expanding. Get involved. You're going to be the ones that have to maintain this building, maintain these new spaces. That's critical that you're involved right out of the gates. But facilities involvement early in planning reduces change orders by 45%. That's a big number. Okay. And now let me kind of explain to you what that means. This is what I've heard from other folks. Okay. Facilities is going to see things that they have to maintain that don't just jump out during construction or jump out during design. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen where I've done site walks and we're there at the 90% completion of a project and it's a new build and facilities is walking through there just shaking their head. And I'm like, well, what's wrong? Well, I see that unit up there, that fan coil unit up there. The only way I'm going to be able to change the filters in that or access the panel for that is I'm gonna have to cut a hole in the wall afterwards. That's a day in the life. I hear this all the time. But doing those site walks right up front, doing that, getting facilities involved right out of the gates can minimize some of that stuff. So again, it's those things, the eyes and ears of great. It looks great. It's it's beautiful picture that we've drawn of this new building. And now we're going to build it, but somebody has to maintain that. So understanding what is involved in maintaining that comes to facilities, right? Collaboration with design teams saves 1.3 million an average per project. I have heard, I cannot tell you how many times that we allocate X amount of dollars for those overruns, for those additional things. And I don't have to tell you right now with what's going on with costs going up. They've been going up for years, but I've heard that people are doing between 5 and 20%. And I've even heard higher in a few instances where they're allocating 5 to 20% more to their project budget for overruns and also change orders. Change orders, because facilities didn't know that you have to, or they didn't know, I'm sorry, before when they're building the thing that facilities need to be able to access this because of whatever, right? So that's a change order because now they have to cut a hole in the wall. Well, what if that's a load bearing wall? Again, it's a compounded challenge that facilities involvement can jump right in and point those little things out that can go a long way to reduce some of that. Also, long-term planning ensures infrastructure alignment with business growth. So understanding, what's going on in the building through the life of that building, okay? Because I can't tell you how many sites I go to where they've added a wing. So you've got old building, new stuff, trying to attach that. You've got old equipment in half the building, brand new equipment, state-of-the-art equipment in another part of the building. Well, in many cases, design construction, they don't know all the things that have changed in that building because it's not documented. All right. They changed some of it in-house. It wasn't just a project that changed it. They swapped equipment out. They've done this over and over and over again over years because that building's, 80 years old or 50 years old. It's changed. All those evolutions aren't necessarily turned back over to design construction for the next wing that's being added or even that renovation. So again, getting involved, getting facilities involved right up front in new projects, building onto existing buildings, or renovating a building, it's critical that you're involved. Well, designing for maintenance efficiency, I took these photos, right? That photo on the upper right there, that is the space that they have allocated based off design construction. Okay, now again, I'm not knocking design construction. They didn't know, right? But again, they have to crawl on their belly to get into that, to get back to that unit to service that particular piece of equipment, right? I barely fit through that space. The guy who was walking with me couldn't. So this is a new construction project. They have to cut a hole in the wall up above where you see that. They have to cut a hole in the wall so that this guy can fit through there. So again, that's the stuff that facilities is thinking about. How am I going to maintain this thing, right? Also, the picture on the bottom down there, he's documenting this, but see that copper pipe there? That blocks the door from opening on that side of that unit. Okay. They didn't know. Well, he does. He's thinking, how am I going to service this doggone thing? If the panel goes out of this thing or the motherboard goes out of this thing, how am I going to replace that? Well, I have to move that pipe. Well, that's not effective. You can't do that. Well, retrofitting poor design costs 3 to 4 times more than proactive layout. That guy jumped right in there. If he would have been involved, he would have said, oh, no, hold on. We need to turn this unit, or we need to reposition this unit, or we have to reposition those lines. It's easier to reposition the line than replace that unit, rip it all out after the fact. Smart access planning reduces service time by 30%. If the team can't access stuff to do their job, the maintenance team, the facilities guys and gals on your team can't access stuff, it takes time. It's all time. Your team never has enough time. By proactively heading off some of this stuff, it could potentially eliminate some of those headaches for them and also give them back some of that time. But early detection of design flaws can save hundreds of hours annually, right? This is just a couple of units here, but how many other units on there? This is a multi-story, multi-million-dollar project, right? And these things are all over the place. These types of things are all over the place. Now, granted, some of it's design challenges. I get that. But because facilities wasn't involved, they weren't able to head some of this stuff off. This is the pro and the con. Getting involved is going to help eliminate some of these challenges. The con is if you don't, this is what you run into. So again, project planning design for maintenance helps prevent some of those future issues with that proactive planning. Also, proper filter access saves hours, okay, lots of time. Show before and after diagrams of good design. Go in there when you go in and you start to point out some of this, offer some suggestions of what they should do. Offer some suggestions to how to access that stuff. But you're also going to be able to point out the little things that are often overlooked through design construction. And, that long-term planning involvement means facilities needs to be part of 3 to 5 year planning cycles too. Early involvement, again, fewer retrofits, fewer change orders, but also highlight some case studies on those cost saving potential things. Listen, if we do it this way, this could save my team X number of hours. This could save us on this efficiency, whatever the case may be. Come to the table with actual studies, cost saving, your thoughts. And again, building that trust is going to help you when you're sitting across from those folks to better understand this is the why I'm asking to do this. And here's a visual of what that means. And oftentimes too, during that new construction, facilities and design construction aren't pulling leadership in until it's one of these 2 points. It's either they're breaking ground or the ribbon cutting when they're opening. Pull leadership in. They'll have a better understanding of what's going on, some of these things that are happening in your facilities throughout construction too, not just beginning before you've even really broke ground or you're opening. No, give them a heads up so they can see and get a better understanding of what's going on. Not just the design construction people walking with them, have facilities walk with them as well. So they'll get a better understanding of this is going to really help us. Show the good stuff, show the not so good stuff, but help them to understand what's going on and also give them exposure to some of the challenges you might face during construction. Well, project site walks with executive team helps boost accountability across teams and vendors. If they can see what's going on through the entire construction process, they'll have a better understanding of some of the things that you're seeing. Also, show top-down commitment, lifting the morale of your team too. Listen, executive leadership really gives a dang about what's going on in our building, and they really want to understand, so it'll help our team in the long run. But also, you can help catch some of those issues early through direct observation. If you're running into something, again, I'm a visual person. If you're just walking in and saying, hey, design construction team walks into leadership and says, we're running into some issues here, take them out and show them what that means, right? Also, improve field to leadership communication. It's not just blind. They're not going in blind. They have a visual of what's going on, and a better understanding of what that means. And it's going to help you better communicate long term. Enables faster on-site decision making. When the executive team's walking with you and you say, hey, listen, this is what we end up having to do. We had to tweak the plans because of this. Is that okay? Or do we need to go a different direction? It eliminates some of those surprises and also helps get some quicker answers, yes or no. But you want to be able to get those answers faster because it'll help lessen the delays that you could run into on your project. But it builds that trust between execs and the project teams too. They get a better understanding of what's going on, and it helps them to understand because they're communicating on a regular basis. But it aligns those goals with those strategic priorities real time, live, in the field. Also helps you reinforce a culture of safety and visibility. Doing those site walks, are they required to put on, PPE? Are they putting on booties? Are they putting on, hard hats? All of that stuff. It helps to understand what's going on in the day-to-day of building that building, but it also helps you to reinforce that safety. And they get a better understanding of what's going on through the entire project, and that you're building that safety culture. And it'll help minimize some of that risk throughout that process as well. Increase transparency and progress and status. If you're finding yourself running into some delays, take them out there, show them what those delays are from, but also show the progress that's good. Show them we're ahead of schedule on this. This is great. All right. This is what some of the things that we uncovered with our teams to better understand and get ahead of some of these potential challenges. That shows, and again, that trust, that also shows that you're on top of it, but it provides that context for better planning and funding moving forward. It's a big deal. So also educating leadership on your current labor challenges too. Leadership has heard 100 times, there's challenges finding people across the board in an organization. But understanding what the labor shortage means with skilled trades, they don't necessarily know what that means. Okay. They understand that we've lost people to retirement, but what does that really mean? So educating leadership on what that means to your organization and to your team is a big deal. It's not just, hey, we're down 5 people and overtime's going up. Because then you're looked at as a cost center. Oh, shoot, we're paying more money. We're paying a lot more money because people are having to work a ton of overtime. Well, why? Educate them. Help them to understand what that means for your group, your organization, because you lost people, because you can't find people. And let's look at that. So here's some real world challenges that I've seen, and these were shared with leadership to help them to better understand what's going on. It's building their business case, right? So one organization lost a person with 10 years experience. Guy got a job offer. He came back to the organization and said, listen, here's the offer that they made me. If you match it, I'll stay. I'm very happy in my job, but this is a big offer. Okay. It's a lot more money for my personal home, for my family. But if you match it, I'm more than willing to stay. He went back to leadership. And again, this was a group that didn't understand some of the challenges that they face. And they said, oh, there's no way we can't do that. And HR was involved, finance was involved. They said, there's no way we can do that. The guy leaves. They start running ads for a new person to replace this person, right? A year goes by. The first 6 months, they didn't have one person apply. They published their rates of what they're paying. No one applied. They went back to leadership and said, listen, we can't get anybody to apply. What I'm paying in overtime, and we actually had to outsource part of it to a third party company, which is even more money, right? Instead of being able to, get pay up my pay scale to hire a person that's qualified to get them in and keep them. What they do? They went back to HR, they went back to leadership. They ended up bumping up the pay scale to the pay scale that it would have kept to keep this person who just left. Okay. They didn't know. Scenario number two is facilities director had knew this guy. He'd worked with him in a previous project, had 20 years experience, right? And he went, HR posted the job site or a job on their website, and he didn't check a box and got an auto reject email literally seconds after he hit submit. 20 years experience. Okay. What was it? He didn't have a 4-year degree. He doesn't need a 4-year degree to be an electrician. Okay. He didn't need that 4-year degree to qualify for this job, but he got an auto reject seconds after he hit submit because he didn't check the box. Why is that? They hadn't updated their job descriptions in years. It was literally copy and paste, but someone accidentally put that they had to have a 4-year degree. Guy got auto rejected. How he found out, the director found out, is his buddy called him and said, hey, I just got an auto reject. He goes, what? He went and talked to HR, unchecked the box. It was that simple, but they didn't know what they didn't know. Again, it's understanding what's going on and building that trust, building that understanding for what you need to maintain your team, and conveying that up to all the stakeholders, not just your senior leadership, but also to HR, also to your finance side, all the people who are involved in that hiring process or who are making some of those decisions on what you can do to hire those people. Get them involved early. So why leadership should prioritize modern job description helps you find better talent. Okay. And the talent that aligns with your organization goals. 52% of job seekers say job description quality impacts their decision to even apply. That's from Indeed. Okay, if your job description is out of date or it's got requirements that don't align with the actual job, they're not even going to apply in many cases. Half of those people you could be missing out on because the job description doesn't align with what the actual job is. But also helps you reduce early turnover, meaning hire people, they're there for a year, they're gone. Regularly updating job descriptions leads to 30% lower turnover in the first 6 months because you've posted what the actual job is, right? Relook at those job descriptions and post what it is, because a lot of folks, they apply for a job thinking it's X, and then they come in and it's completely different because the job description didn't even match what the actual job was. Also helps you with faster hiring. Clear modern postings reduce time to hire by 25%. Speeds up you getting people in the door on your team, up to speed, faster. 25% faster. That's a big deal. Also, competitive advantage is 73% of employers report that trade jobs require having shifted from 5 years. Okay, many organizations, and I've talked to HR folks around the country, all different types of industries, and they oftentimes tell me that they used to really eliminate people who hadn't been on the job for 5 years or longer. They just bump them out. And that was sometimes even in the application process. If they hadn't been there for 5 years, they immediately got disqualified and got that auto email that I mentioned earlier. That's not what we're seeing today. What we're seeing today is 2 or 3 years, because people oftentimes are job hopping. They're chasing the next dollar an hour. So again, it's that compounded challenge. Think about it from the perspective of looking at your pay scale, looking at your job descriptions, looking at what are some of the ways that you are aligning your team so that they understand we're here for you. We want to support you. We also want to help with your career growth. It's a big deal. So justifying competitive pay and retention strategies to leadership is top talent attraction is 67% of tradespeople change jobs for better pay. Okay. Again, chasing the dollars. It's their family. At the end of the day, You may think that they're just loyal to you and they're going to be loyal to you forever. If someone offers them $5 to $10 more an hour, they're going to leave. They're going to leave. Okay. That's a challenge. And that paying that kind of additional funds isn't viable for every organization. Okay. But really looking at what the current job market is understanding what the current pay scales are in your area is a big deal. But it'll also help you to retain. And it's not all about just paying them more money. That's not all of what it is. Some of it is, I love my job. Some of it, I get other ancillary benefits, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it also will help you with this justifying that competitive pay is faster fills. Above market wages fill roles 30% faster. Also, get a higher acceptance rate. Being transparent, competitive offers are twice as likely to be accepted. Strong retention. Apprenticeship programs yield 92% retention post-training. All right. Also, this is going to help you with lower turnover. Annual pay reviews. How often are you doing reviews? How often are you sitting down with your team and understanding what's going on, what they're doing? It helps lower your attrition by up to 20%. Okay. It helps you keep your finger on the pulse of how your team is doing and how they're feeling. Okay. And you heard me say it, feeling. You need to know what your team is feeling, so you understand who's not happy, and maybe you sit down with them and figure out why. It could be funding, it could be personal, something that's going on in their lives. But again, it's the more you understand about your team, you're sharing that you care. It's not just about the dollar, but it's also going to help lower that turnover. Long-term value is referral hires stay 25% longer too. When you're looking for people, especially skilled trades, they all know other skilled trades people. Ask them who they know. Ask them if they know someone who might be a good fit. Okay. Maybe it's their kid. Maybe it's somebody else's kid that's just coming out of school. All right. I would rather have that than just have to blanketly run an ad when I've got an instant referral to someone who's coming right out of school, or I've got an instant referral for somebody who's looking to switch jobs and they would be a great fit. The people on your team are going to know what the job requires, but they're also going to know who would be potential good fits to replace somebody or add on to your team. Like I said, they all know each other. But this, by knowing this and coming at it from this approach, this is going to help you justify competitive pay and give your leadership a full, transparent overview of what's going on with the team so that they have a better understanding too. So I love this. This is an in our shoes tour. Our shoes tour with senior executives. Okay, this isn't I'm not talking about a site walk during construction. This is a day in the life. Okay, it's lets leadership see the efforts behind the scenes. I oftentimes say this, and I've said this, I can't tell you how many times. Facilities and maintenance is behind the curtain. You're behind the curtain. You're the eyes and ears of the facility, but you're behind the curtain. You're in the basement. You're in the mechanical rooms. You're in the spaces that are not traditionally visitor facing, patient facing, student facing. Okay. Leadership doing site walks with you to see what's behind the curtain in the day-to-day is a big deal. Just like the site walks that I mentioned earlier. This is a day in the life, right? This will help you share your vision and some of the constraints. Walk and be honest with them. Share, hey, we're having challenges with this unit. Hey, we're having challenges over here. But these are some of the good things our team has done. We just completely redid this. We repainted this whole area over here. Remember that water incident we happened? My team jumped in and they were able to replace this and get everything back up and running. We were only down for an hour. It's lifting your team up to your executives in their day-to-day lives. That's a big deal because, again, it's that building that trust, but also giving them exposure to a day in the life. But also utilizing technology and showing photos of things, showing that your team, when I say that day in the life, show them what you do when you're doing a PM. Show them what you're doing when you're looking for electrical drawings. Show them what you're doing when your team is just doing daily rounds, walking the site and identifying stuff. Where that really comes down is show them that you're a forward thinking organization. Highlight the tools you use. Okay. It's not just a wrench. Your wrench is in your pocket. It's your phone. Show them that you're able to access information about your building. Show them that you're able to access shutoff locations, mechanical equipment locations. You can see all the photos of the equipment. Where is it? What is it? Okay. Not just a work order. Work order just tells you something's broke. It tells you got to go fix something. It tells you got to do a PM on something. Okay. Show them what you do to find this stuff. Show them with not just your folks that have been there for a long time. Show them with a new guy. Do a site walk with the new guy too, so he can also share information about what he's learned or she's learned on your team. It goes a long way so that they understand what's going on in a day in the life with your executives too. Old buildings, though, also mean old ways of managing them. They may not necessarily understand that your buildings are older, they're some of them are new, but at the end of the day, 65% of buildings still store documents and paper. If you're having that challenge, explain that to leadership and what that means to your team. Does that mean that your team is doing having to go back and forth from the field? They're having to go back and forth to find stuff to do their job? Show them that. And then show them solutions that can fix that and eliminate that time. You heard me say that again, time. But nearly 1 in 3 buildings in the US is over 50 years old, and approximately 70% of those buildings are over 20 years old. Old buildings, old stuff. Show them that. Give them that exposure during those site walks so they get a better understanding. But modern facilities teams are using field access to all their MEP drawings, all from their phone, all from their tablet. It's showing your organization as a forward thinking, exposing them to a day in the life. What does this mean to my team? What does this mean to our organization? It means we can get more done. It means that we're more efficient, but it also means my team is fully up to speed. But access to all shutoffs and equipment locations in seconds, that's something that you are helping them to understand the importance, because this minimizes the risk in your facilities. The risk, if something goes sideways, my team can react. And that's what this means. So I can access all the equipment, all the shutoff information, even videos that I've taken or videos that my team has posted, so that everybody's on the same page and I can get full visibility to all the information for my building in seconds. Shows you and your team is forward thinking. If you can't, bring stuff to the table that shows them how you can get there. You know, this is one of our problems that we run into, Mr. Executive, and part of the challenge is we can't find stuff, but I found this thing that'll allow me to do this. Okay. Now you get them, because they're in the field, they understand the challenge. Now, when you go to talk to them about adding new things, adding new technologies, adding new tools in your toolbox that can help you, they have a better understanding of the why. Why does that matter to the team? Well, in this case, minimize risk, minimize downtime. It's a big deal. But here's a true story. K through 12 school, okay, rooftop unit catches on fire. Again, being able to identify what's what, what's where. Again, K through 12 on a Saturday, right? No school. Fire department rolls up, the unit's on fire on the roof. Fire department calls the 800 number or 855 number that they had for their school. Brand new person, been on the job for a couple of weeks, shows up. He says, I need to find the electrical panel for this because we got to kill power to this. We can't just dump water on it. It's live. She pulls out her phone out of her pocket. She hands it to the guy and says, here's the panel. It's in this room. Let me unlock it for you. Room's filled with smoke. Says, second breaker down on the right. Kills the breaker, puts the fire out. Fire department says, how the heck did you do that? She goes, I've been on the job a couple of weeks and I can access every shutoff in my building. Show that to your leadership too. Tell that story. Tell your stories that our team was able to find stuff to respond faster, which minimized risk, minimized downtime. Even the brand new person who just started a couple of weeks ago can do that. Huge, huge. That story sticks with them. They now understand, listen, these are not just a wrench. These are tools to help my team better respond when something goes sideways, or better respond when I need something done, or to eliminate some of those potential risks. My team can respond. That resonates. Now they have an understanding as to why they need that stuff. Okay. But this also helps you have those accurate floor plans with routes. Okay. Knowing where they got to go to get out of a building. In this case, here's the shutoff. Here's the AC, right? All shared in text. So everybody has access. Access makes a difference. Access means my team can access everything to maintain and keep my building and also functioning, but more importantly, respond when something goes sideways. But 20 to 40% of assets in the field have been replaced, decommissioned, moved, or new. This is the stuff that you need to visually explain to people. So when you're explaining to someone, again, remember I said sliding that spreadsheet across, but attaching a photo saying, listen, this unit's on its last legs, and now here's my justification. A visual goes a long way. But why it's important to maintain your equipment, to be able to respond faster, minimize that downtime is units aren't made to last forever. These are some of the life expectancies of equipment. And again, your equipment's going to be in different phases of this life cycle, but your goal is to maximize the useful life of this equipment. Make sure it's running, functioning properly, that you can respond, that you're maintaining this stuff. Here's again, true story. Unit broke unexpectedly, right? Unit breaks in a building. Leadership had no idea why, right? So cost $10,000 a month to hire to bring this unit in, hook it up to the building, right? It was there for 18 months. But moving forward, think about this. If you told leadership and you said, hey, this unit's on its last legs, right? And they said, well, what does that mean? Well, that means if this unit goes down, we have to pay potentially $10,000 a month. Okay. So now let's fast forward. It does break. Now you have to bring it in, rent this unit and bring it in. The reason it took 18 months to get this unit is that's the current environment we're in right now. It takes a lot longer to get stuff than it used to. But if we don't get this and we don't get ahead of this and we don't think about replacing this, that time equipment breaks when it breaks. It doesn't break on your schedule, but planning that replacement is going to help eliminate some of these things, and exposing leadership to what that means is going to go a long way. Okay. The cost of deferred maintenance, every dollar of deferred maintenance means $4 in future potential repair costs. That's an industry standard. 65% of critical failures are preventable with scheduled maintenance. You're seeing the equipment regularly, so you've got a heads up when something's going sideways, and you're documenting when things are not running up to speed. They're not running efficiently. You know, because you're there more often and you've got a regular routine to do that PM, you understand what's there, what's happening, and you got your finger on the pulse of what's going on with your building equipment. Proactive planning can reduce OpEx by 10 to 15%. That's a big number. But risk of inaction is deferred maintenance increases long-term costs by 400%. Think about that. 400%. Equipment fails, it's cost, money. Keeping leadership apprised of what's going on with those critical pieces. What's the end of life? What's my end of life expectancy on some of this stuff? Equipment failures equal lost productivity, safety hazards, and potential emergency costs. Also, using those heat maps to highlight high risk areas will go a long way. It's full transparency, full exposure. Executive walkthroughs, the measurable value to that is companies doing quarterly walkthroughs report two and a half times more leadership support. They know what's going on. It's not a surprise. Also, visual learning increases executive retention of facilities issues by 60%. You've shown them this. Now, the next time when they're out walking your site, they can say, you know what, I remember he said something about this building. So when they see the facilities guy walking around or maintenance technician walking around, they can say, hey, how's that thing running? I hear people saying that, executive leaders saying that to people, and the maintenance team lights up. Oh my gosh, he knows that that's going on, or she knows that that's going sideways. That's awesome. Okay. Because I'm fearful that thing's going to break, and I'm going to have to go explain to them why. Now they know. They have an heads up that things are not running right, or things are going sideways, or things are going really well. They're going to point that stuff out. Teams report higher morale, again, with their team when leadership is involved. It's not micromanaging. It's, hey, they care. So empowering teams for Technician Tuesdays. This is awesome. Technician Tuesdays is, there's one organization does 15-minute leadership learnings with leadership, with the facilities team, with everybody on the group, other stakeholders too. Encourages cross-functional understanding and morale. Also, leadership sees real challenges, innovations, things that your team is doing. Engaged teams are 22% more productive. It also empowers your technicians and helps them generate 2 times more improvement ideas. Think about that. Double. They're going to bring tables and bring ideas to the table. They're going to be more apt to bring, because I'm bringing this idea to the table that's going to help our team long term. It's also going to build them up and their confidence. Technician Tuesdays reduce work order backlogs by 17%. Okay. That was a big one that I heard. That came right from someone that I talked to. Also, do lunch and learns, okay, with key departments. Pull them in, involve key stakeholders, build cross-departmental understanding of what's going on, getting feedback from those other departments, other stakeholders. Also, strengthening relationships with leadership. Also, this is going to drive proactive problem solving, getting them involved. They're going to be talking to the whole team, not just one person, okay? But it fosters a culture for continuous improvement. Okay. Vendor co-presentations to leadership, right? I cannot stress this enough. Right. You're not salespeople in most cases, right? Leadership, is not understanding what's going on. You don't know how to explain it to leadership. Pull your vendors in. Have them, if you've got a vendor that you're looking to do something with, pull the vendor in, have them co-sell with you, have them build that relationship on what you're trying to do, explaining your goals. They sell to leaders all the time. Have them come in and explain that and co-present with you. But it also helps you to demonstrate you're forward thinking and you don't know everything, and that's okay. But hold quarterly tech briefings with stakeholders so that they know this is something we want to do long term. Here's some of the things, get some information from my vendors, but also potentially doing reverse trade show vendor events. Okay. Pull in vendors, get your leadership involved, walk with them through this and explain to them what each organization does. And they may even have ideas how it can help other areas within your organization. AI is helping with a lot of things that facilities teams are doing too. Maintenance teams are really leaning on AI, leaning on technologies. Okay. But what that means is it's going to help AI is going to start to help do some preventative things, or even give you a heads up that something, when you're going out there to fix a work order or fix a piece of equipment, you got a work order, maybe it's going to make some suggestions, or maybe you identify where is it, it's going to say, hey, this uses this belt, or maybe, you know what, here's a YouTube video, here's what you looked at last time. It's going to start to make some of those things, and potentially suggest some of those things. But it's also going to help you not spend more time going back and forth. It's going to say, you know what, while I'm here, I might as well do a PM. Maybe it gives you an alert that says, I don't know, we got to do a PM on this thing, right? That's what I think AI, and I've heard where facilities teams are looking for AI to really help them, right? But building your business case, vendor collaborative business cases, okay, is going to help you sell faster, sell internally faster, get tools that you need that are going to help your team long term. Vendor demos accelerate tech adoption by 50%. Okay. Partnering with innovation increases system uptime by 20%. This is across the board with all the different technologies that you use, but also cross-educating improves both vendor and internal team knowledge. Knowing what's going on, keeping your finger on the pulse of what industry changes are happening, what are other folks doing, is going to go a long way within your organization. But what it really comes down to is creating that culture of success. And I call this team success. Recognizing your team, sharing those wins with your team and leadership, and open to feedback. Be open to good, bad, and different, but be open to the feedback. Celebrate preventative saves. things that have happened, man, we caught this and it saved us this. And matter of fact, Bob caught this or Jennifer caught this. And if we wouldn't have, it would have been this. Good job. Okay. Again, celebrate those wins. Okay. Engaged employees are 21% more productive. High performance cultures are 12 times more likely to achieve business goals. 12 times. That's the overall goal for your organization, right? Celebrating success increases team retention by 28%. Listen, my team cares about me. My team celebrated that thing that I did. That's awesome, right? That goes a long way. Shared recognition drives innovation and accountability. It wasn't just Jennifer or Bob, it was also this entire team over here. It was a team approach, right? Sharing that recognition and those wins to leadership shows that you're a collaborative team working, you're all rowing in the same direction, and everybody's out to really help with those overall achieving those business goals. So final recommendation here, you got to start now with something. Building that relationship with leadership, getting leadership involved, getting your team involved from design construction to renovations to day-to-day. Getting your entire team involved is a big deal. Track and share those wins regularly. Okay. Connect maintenance to organization-wide goals. Get that seat at the table. Share your vision. Share some of those best practices, but also listen to what others are saying and talk to other key stakeholders. Involve leadership visually, physically, and mentally. Again, it's not just about a spreadsheet across the table and you're an expense. No, here's what we do. Here's what that means. But also, you remember when we did that site walk a month ago and I showed you this? This is what that meant. Now it failed, or you know what? My team jumped on it and they got it fixed. Okay. Or we rolled it into a new project budget. But also, it's when they're out, leadership's out doing their own site walk and they see stuff, they're going to be more likely to report back to you. Hey, you know what? You mentioned that you were having trouble with this area over here on the grounds. That looks gorgeous. The team really stepped up. That's beautiful. So now all the people who come into our facility love it's inviting. That's coming from leadership to your team. Positive reinforced feedback. All right. But make facilities a value driver. They're going to understand that you're a value driver based on all those different things that you do to impact your facilities. So let's open it up to a couple of questions, Indira.
David, thank you so much. What a great presentation. We actually had several people asking if we're going to share the recording. So yes, absolutely. Let me get to just a few questions. We do still have quite a few people on, so I'll just go ahead and ask you some of the questions that we got. The first one here is, what's the first thing a facilities team should do when they're told, quote, there's no budget?
When you're thinking about, I always think of it this way from a budget perspective. Okay. Don't just walk in and you've got a number. You got to be able to justify that. That could be cost savings in other areas. It could be, this is going to help us on an energy reduction. This is going to help us reduce man hours. We've had X number of other things where we've had to go out and service this equipment. When you're going into budget, when you're thinking of how do I get something paid for, whether it's equipment or you're looking at, I don't know, software, technologies, whatever, justify it with real numbers, your real numbers. Listen, last year, we spent X amount of dollars and this would cut that in half. Okay. That's value back. We're paying X amount of overtime and we've had this equipment fail. We've replaced it 5 times. We've lost revenue because we had to close the ORs for a half a day. Your justification has to come with an ROI that way. But it's your numbers based off of your organization.
Thanks, David. We did have several people asking because you showed some screenshots. One of the question was, what's the program used for that screenshot you showed about the impact of equipment failures at the very beginning? And then we had another question about the iPhone screenshot that you showed. What's the software? What's the program? People are wondering.
Yeah, that's our software. Happy to show you that. Yeah, we actually map out equipment, map out all the information for a building, and then they have access to where that stuff is. It's not a work order system, but it shows you where is it, what is it, and you have full visibility to all the information for your building, no matter where the heck you are. I always say, it's a computer in your pocket, or it's also a plan room in your pocket. But more importantly, it's all the building information for your stuff, meaning your building, your infrastructure. It's also all the mechanicals, all the shutoffs, everything in the pocket of every single person on your team.
Awesome, awesome. And if anybody wants to see more of that, the information on the screen here, you could request a demo, you could reach out to our team, reach out to David, and we can show you a little bit more. We did run out of time, David. I'm going to ask one more question
Oh,
here.
sure.
You've seen what works across a lot of organizations. What's one tactic that tends to get decision makers to start listening?
I think the big thing is really it comes back to, again, getting that seat at the table, and more importantly, communication. I say this all the time: communication, communication, communication. It's it's you don't want to blindside leadership. So the more you can expose them to what's going on in your facilities and build that relationship with your facilities is going to help you build that trust. Okay. And it's different for every organization. It's different for every leader. It's different for every facilities team. I don't know where you are within your facility, but building those building blocks of building that relationship is going to help you in the long run to build that trust with your leadership, to build that open and honest communication with leadership. And it's the communication styles are different for each individual, of course, but I shared a lot of techniques on how people are doing that and getting them involved. And sometimes it's just little baby steps. But at the end of the day, the more communication you can have with your leadership and give them the exposure to what's going on in the building, it's going to eliminate a lot of those blindside moments.
Awesome. That's great advice. Thank you, David. So there are some questions we did not get to, but we'll
Okay.
make sure that those get answered in individual follow-up from our team members here.
Great.
And David, thank you so much for a
My
great
pleasure.
presentation today. I want to remind everybody that a recording from today's webinar will be sent in a follow-up email from ARC Facilities tomorrow. So look out for that. And thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Please feel free to connect with David on LinkedIn. Check out the Facility Voices podcast. That's a great place for you to hear some of these more strategies that David talked about. You can contact ARC Facilities. Here's the information on the screen. David, good luck with your presentation tomorrow. I hope you have fun at the conference over there at APA in Florida. Do you have anything else you want to wrap up with?
Oh, thank you everybody for joining today, and feel free, as Indira mentioned, reach out. I'm happy to share any additional information with you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.